What's up, everybody? Thralls of Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
And I'm Jammin John.
And we have another album review for you. This is definitely one of the bigger releases this month, and kind of a nostalgic one for us.
I suppose you could call it that. Nostalgic. Yeah.
Yeah. We are going to review Korn's new album, The Nothing. This comes out the 13th of September on Roadrunner/Elektra Records.
They're still on Roadrunner?
Yeah, they're still on Roadrunner.
Wow.
These guys have been around since 1993. This is their 13th album, and at one point they were quite possibly the most popular
band on the face of the
rock band. Yeah.
I guess new metal band.
Yeah.
I'd call them
They were the new metal band.
Yeah, they were the I guess maybe the predecessors of new metal.
I know, like when we were kids, we definitely listened to a fuckload of Korn.
I did. In fact, the first album to this day is still on my phone. Yeah. I loved the shit out of that album.
I love the first two. Two. And some of the later stuff I like too, but that was what really got me into the whole new metal thing. So this is kind of an interesting revisiting of a band that, well, we kind of cut our teeth on.
Yeah.
And definitely inspired an entire generation of...
I mean, I'll go on a limb and say the first Korn album got me into metal.
It was...
I mean, because I wasn't, at least me personally, I wasn't too big into metal until I hit probably 13, 14 years old, so...
Cannibal Corpse, for me. I kind of took an accelerated course into metal. So this album starts off with The End Begins, which is, okay, whatever. In terms of the title, it's just kind of like, oh, all right. Starts off with bagpipes.
Bagpipes.
And why the fuck not? It's Korn. I suppose bagpipes are always in order.
Bagpipes and some crying.
Yes. I would have to say one of Jonathan Davis's best vocal performances.
Agreed. If I can say anything good about this album, it's his vocals are on point.
I mean,
he sounds more like himself than he has in the past probably 10 albums, I'd say.
But he's also doing a lot of different stuff too. Like you hear him do like deep death roars. Like there are parts in here that sound
death. I mean, there's a death growl.
Yeah,
if you want to say that, he gets really deep.
You really don't hear him. I mean, honestly, even early on in the career, you only heard him do that sparingly. It's kind of all over on this album, and you get that impression on the first track, the first actual track, "Cold," which was one of the singles released, and honestly, my favorite track on here.
It's one of two for me, for sure.
It's a really heavy track. It has a cool kind of bouncing, funky rhythm, but this one brings some heavy riffs, almost kind of genty, and you hear Jonathan Davis do his low freakouts.
Yeah, it appears. Look, you think it would set the tone of the album.
Spoiler alert.
Think. Spoiler alert. It does not set the tone of the album.
This was my favorite track, and going through it, there really isn't another track that I think compares to it in terms of its ferocity. This is
correct.
The heaviest track on here, I think. There are heavier moments in other songs, but this track is almost entirely heavy, with a really good chorus too. I mean, there's a lot of radio-friendly choruses because that's where they lurk. But this one actually really worked for me because the rest of the song didn't sound like it was going to be a radio song.
Sure.
The next track you get is You'll Never Find Me, which I believe was also released as a single, and this one is definitely more of a single. And
it's radio-friendly.
It is.
I mean, really, this whole album, sans the first song, is really radio-friendly.
It is.
It's Korn.
So, those looking for that return to those first two albums, you're not going to get it.
You're definitely not going to get it. If anything throughout this album, I think you'd get a little more of a return to, say, like, Issues era.
Issues is pretty fair. It's still unmistakably Korn. You can still tell they're pretty in love with the electronic elements. I mean, they're not. Yeah. It's not Path of Totality. We don't talk about that. No. That's just a fucking no.
Yeah.
But you can still tell they like those electronic elements. But it became kind of strained for me just because Korn was known for all these cool guitar effects. These really wild-sounding ones. They almost sounded like electronic things.
Yeah, when Korn started, they were known for experimenting.
Yeah.
Such as on Life is Peachy, where they stand with a microphone over a piano and pluck piano strings. I mean, that was cool. And, in their first album, too, they were all about experimenting with different guitar effects, which was a cool thing. Not so much of that anymore. I think they're more into the experimenting with electronics, which is great.
But when they do experiment with those guitars, you can't tell the difference. I mean, it's really hard to tell the difference between those guitar effects and these electronic effects.
Yeah.
And honestly, in this mix, while I like it, it is very overproduced, but that's kind of what you come to expect from a band this big. The guitars really take a backseat in the mix. They feel like they're back further in the mix. The drums feel more out front, and
the drums
Jonathan
and the
Davis
vocals, 100%.
Yeah.
And Fieldy had a couple slap moments, but I mean, it was nothing. There's nothing really to write home about. I feel like in the guitar section, really, I think Ross Robinson did this band a favor in many ways. And then after he left, I don't think they've been the same since.
He was known for getting the visceral, emotional performances out of everyone. Mm-hmm. Idiosyncrasy had some interesting moments. This one was kind of a head scratcher for me. Like, okay, it has this pretty interesting crawling riff that opens it up.
Yep.
And some metal chorish, death chorus breakdowns, and then into a disco beat on the chorus. This one's kind of all over the place, and it was one of those songs that was like, I don't know what the song's identity is. Maybe it's to have no identity. I don't know.
Here's the thing I found about this album as a whole. The choruses are all kind of sing-songy, which is Korn. Majority of the songs had a decent opener riff.
Yeah.
Like you just thought, like, okay, maybe this is gonna be heavy, and it didn't. It was a good opener riff, and then it was in the middle, and then
it's similar pacing to the songs.
But all the breakdowns were really good.
But anyway, we get doing a breakdown moment. I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. And then you'd actually hear like the guitar work shine a little bit.
Yep.
And it really came together. And like I said, Jonathan Davis is killing it on this album. He really does some amazing stuff.
Yeah,
like,
once again,
I was super impressed with this.
Yep.
He's definitely grown as a vocalist. For most of this album, the guitars and most of the instrumentation do not match the intensity of Jonathan Davis's vocal performance.
Yeah, they don't mimic the performance whatsoever, because his vocals are literally all over the map.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to see again.
Yeah, like honestly, I wasn't expecting that. Like there's a lot of growth here. I haven't listened to like Paradigm Shift, which was the one before this, I believe. Might be another one in there. This is my first return to Korn in a long time.
Very long time. This is the first Korn album I've listened to since Issues. Because I listened to a little bit of whatever the hell was after Issues. I don't remember Untouchables, and I didn't like it, and so I stopped. And I pretty much have heard a radio single here and there from Korn. So this is the first Korn album I've listened to since Issues.
And I feel like this album wants to be more experimental in spots, and to some degree it is, but it really just sort of panders to the radio. It really does. And I like the more experimental moments. There are parts in here that remind me of like 80s pop and like Peter Gabriel, but then you just get thrown in this kind of tired generic riff over a big soaring chorus, and they don't soar as much if you hear that on every song. Like that's the dynamic on every song.
Right. A good album's you're supposed to be able to differentiate between songs, especially for a band that's been around for 26 years. And when was their last album released? I don't even know.
2-3 years ago.
If you're gonna keep making a comeback, if you're gonna keep coming back to music and keep releasing albums, I thought the point of music was to be creative. And to put something out there that isn't already out there. They pander very much to their fan base.
The thing that drives me nuts about that is, granted, they have a rabid fan base. They sell tons of albums. Yeah. They pack whatever venues they're playing.
Yeah.
But
pack
I
arenas.
think that fan base is eventually going to get older. I don't know how much younger this fan base is getting, and maybe they want to hear something different. But then again, you also have this wave of 90s nostalgia that's definitely going to fucking come and hit.
Sure.
And they're going to be a part of it because they were gigantic in the 90s.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that one in terms of how I feel about it, but I still think there should be a little bit more experimentation. Like, they're not going to lose any fans on trying some different things on this.
No, and they wouldn't lose any in my opinion, they wouldn't lose any fans by hitting some more on their earlier days on what made them as big as they are. And you definitely wouldn't lose my fandom at that point. by going back and hitting your roots.
It's probably one of those things where they don't feel they're that band necessarily. They're trying to carve a somewhat new identity. They found this comfort zone, and I guess that's like one of those things that are dangerous for artists, like when you feel comfortable. Like, if you're not on edge about something, or whether or not you're still relevant, I still think they feel as though they're relevant, and they are. But, I don't know, I just wanted to hear more because, like I said, that Cold song really came out swinging.
Right.
And then the rest of the album has moments in there very similar to it.
But they're moments.
But they're moments. They're not entire songs.
I mean, again, on every song I could say, great opener riff, great breakdown. Yeah. On every song I could say that. But it's just a moment.
I liked This Loss. I thought that was a pretty decent track. It had one of the best riffs on the album. I thought the guitars came out a little bit more in there. But it still has the giant, radio-friendly chorus on there, which it just sticks too close to that formula for me. And one of them I really liked that kind of broke away from that was the last track, Surrender to Failure, which is kind of a tribal drum rhythm and maybe a didgeridoo in there.
Kind of a cool outro.
Some more crying?
And some more crying. There's a little bit of crying in the end. So, I mean...
It did break the monotony, but it felt like, all right, well, we bookended intros and outros, and they're okay. It's the substance in between that there should be more.
I miss David Silvera.
I don't know, I thought Ray did a pretty good job in this. But, yeah, David Silvera was a very distinct drummer for them for so long.
Ray's a good drummer. I still like David Silvera better, but Ray's a good drummer.
So, all in all, I'm going to give this one 2.5. The moments I liked in these songs were really good. I just expected more. Like, this is half of a really good album. There were some moments in there I really appreciated. But, I mean, for the most part, I'm kind of let down by this. I wanted to hear some stuff very similar to Cold on there, that opening track. Once again, killer track. If you're going to jam any track on this, jam that one. But, yeah, it's Korn playing it way too safe.
I'm going to give it 2 stars. I can't even jump on board with that extra half. I can count on one hand the amount of moments that were good. If anything, I'm a little disappointed. Mostly, again, because of that opener track. Not the bagpipes and the crying, but Cold.
Your opener should be the pace setter.
The opener should be the pace setter, and had they stuck on track with the pace of that song, I might have given it a little more. Again, this just sets the thing I've said about Korn in the last decade and some change. I like the first album, and Life is Peachy, and Some Follow the Leader, and Issues is alright. It's Korn. It's unfortunately what I thought it was going to be, and I was hoping it wasn't going to be what I thought it was going to be, but
it happens.
I'll give it 2 stars.
They can't all be winners.
Can't all be winners.
So, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We do shit like this all the time.
All the time.
Take it easy.
Take care.